Leo, can you come and do the thing for me? Oh, do you want us to turn the light? Stacey?
Is there fancy what, boss?
Stacey?
Do we kiss your feet?
No.
Carry
Can you ask to turn the lights off then? Can you do the button again? Just press the arrow button. That's it.
Just the arrow at the bottom. Now.
Okay, right, so let's blast through it quick then, because I think a lot of you want to shoot, and you're probably sick of us by 12 weeks anyway. So, I just thought the easiest thing to do is obviously you've all had different trainers, we all have our own ways of doing it, but at the same time there's a lot of stuff that obviously carries over with everyone. So the way I see it is that what we need to do is just give you a little bit of a parting gift to say, like, this is what you need to know to carry on what you've got achieved so far, basically. So obviously you've all been in deficits, you've all been working hard, and you've all made great results, because it's like seeing a bunch of completely different faces. It is actually pretty cool. Because we didn't do this seminar before and after on the last one, so it's pretty cool. So, first things first, is protein is for life, not just for transformation. So, whatever you do now, whether you're going to keep this up, whether you're going to go on and do better, whatever you choose, if you want to maintain what you are now and not get worse, then in theory, you need to be keeping your protein level no matter what. So if you start letting the cake come in and crap come in, at the end of the day, whatever happens, your protein needs to stay, because that's going to be what retains what muscle you put on from all that hard work we did in 12 weeks. So the easiest thing for you to roughly know, hopefully you'll all roughly know what you are on now, but if you're in between the sort of guidelines of about 1.5 to 2.5, that's pretty much a maintenance. Now if you want to reduce your food budget each week, then obviously you can start playing with bringing your protein levels down, but if you start to notice you're losing a lot of weight, then potentially you're losing all the hard work you put on over this 12 weeks. So the worst thing you can do is go binging on crap, not keeping up your protein, and then losing all the muscle you can put on, and that definition and all that good looks that you've done, just by dropping down your protein. And it's pretty quick what can happen, because as you hopefully may have learned by now, amino acids are what make up muscle, and that's what is in protein. So therefore, if the body can't get it from your food, then it's going to get it from your muscles. So then hence why, if you don't have that right, then you're going to start losing the hard work, basically. So levels should be consistent, and that should be every day. So no matter what you do, like I said, you go off the wagon. I always think if I'm having a bad day on the weekend and we're out and about, as long as I've got my protein quota by the end of the day, I'm happy. So whether I've had crap as well, I'll think about that next week. But then I'll just think I've got the protein in it. Alright, let's go on. So calories and carbs. So remember we talked about base metabolic rate and estimated activity rate, remember that? So you should be roughly knowing those now by going through the 12 weeks. So remember your activity rate is what you've been doing based on this high volume of training that we've been doing. So again, if you can't sustain doing 3 sessions, 4 sessions, 5 sessions a week, then in theory you're not going to be burning as many calories and not needing to be eating as much calories. So again, if you want to maintain what you're doing and what you are now or get better, then you've got to think about that. And then your base metabolic rate will have changed slightly, not loads, because you would have put on some muscle. So therefore that will be a little bit higher. Okay. Now the maintaining side of it. Now say for example, let's give an example that you should be eating 2,000 calories, right? So, and we've worked out the protein, the carbs, etc. If you were supposed to eat 2,000, and then for the challenge you've been on sort of like 1,700, 1,600, just so we can get that deficit, your body cannot stay in a deficit for the long term. It's not healthy, okay? So after this, what you've got to think about is if you're really happy, you need to think, right, I need to gradually get my calories and food back to where it needs to be to maintain. So all you do is, I personally, when I get my clients to do this, I'll gradually increase their calories by 50 to 100 a week, see the changes in your weight, any changes in physique. You're still training, obviously, and then if there's no changes, then obviously you're just gradually getting up what your maximum amount is. Because if you think about it, if you want to go out for dinner, you want to go out and do this, you don't want to be down on the lowest amount of calories, lowest amount of carbs, because it's not going to work for you in the real world, is it? So therefore, if you can have your body on the maximum amount of calories and the maximum amount of carbs, if you slip up going and having some crappy food in the morning, night, and the next day, and the next day, and then you go back on it, a few days later, there's a very high chance that you're not going to screw up everything you just did. Whereas if you're always low calorie, low carb, for the rest of the time now thinking, I need to be like that just to stay the way I am, then as soon as you binge out or do anything wrong, then all you're going to do is fluctuate and put weight back on. Okay, so this is where you get that bounce back. So if you know any of our previous transformation clients that we've had before, some of them are successful and they're still exactly the same, and others are just completely back where they started. So that's the biggest danger you've got to look out for, that you don't just suddenly go out binging and thinking, oh yeah, I'm this shape now, great, I can get away with it. There's a good chance you can't straight away. You will be if you gradually ease yourself back into it. Carbs. So carbs are not the enemy. So again, we did do a lot of low carb variations, whether you had to have low carb all the way or if you got carbs reintroduced. But it's always a way to just speed up a little bit of fat loss, but then again we just have to adjust it. So don't be scared of carbs now. This is the same principle. You have to almost try and reintroduce them slowly just to see their effect, and then just understand that if you start putting on weight, are you just generally eating too much and not doing enough? So you're trying to use all these variables, and that's obviously where you still need to have a certain degree of savviness about yourself to do it, because if you just go, oh, yeah, whatever, then there's a good chance you'll just change. So understanding your levels, so you know what your levels are to get you to here. So if you ever go wrong and you completely put all the weight back on, at least now you know. You should be educated enough. I'm hoping we gave you enough of that power to know that if you need to get to X, which is X now, then all you do is do what you did to get to X. Plain and simple. And then all you've got to do is readjust your body. So the longer your body stays at a level, then the more likely it will stay, and that will be its homeostasis. So carbs are important. So if you think, right now I've been losing weight, and I have been low carb and I haven't got to have the carbs in, it isn't a case of doing that continuously, because as you all know and you've all experienced, there are some periods where your fat loss and your changes completely stop and plateau, and then we have to make adjustments to try and kick it up the arse, basically. The difference is with your journey now, if you're carrying on that same journey to lose more, then you just have to think that there are going to be periods where you are going to have to put it all back to normal, maintain, just to let your body recover a bit, because it's almost like you're battering it down constantly. If you keep battering it, all you're doing is just really driving it in and working your thyroid, so it's actually going to be not functioning as properly as it should. And carbs are integral for a good thyroid function. So again, when I have clients that are dieting for long times, or they have a lot of weight to lose, I'll get them to lose a lot, then I'll get them to maintain that new weight, stick with that, put carbs in, put calories up, get them maintaining, make sure no weight fluctuates, give them another 3-6 months on that, and then I'll do it again and drive them down. So again, you can work on a lot of different things in your program without having to lose weight constantly, but in the long term, you've got to remember, if you look at the long game, in a year or two, you could be in the best shape of your life, but then if you try and do it all in like 6 months now by driving it further down, you could just be doing yourself more damage in the long term. So you've got to try and think of that long, further ahead. So that's all I can recommend, is literally find your maximum carbs. Again, so if I know I can personally take on 300 grams of carbs a day, I know that if I have 300 grams of carbs a day for weeks, I'm not going to put any weight on, I'm not going to change if I keep everything else up the same. And therefore, if I go out for dinner, if I want a steak and chips, I'll have steak and chips. Do you know what I mean? So you have your leeway, but if you want to be in better shape, then obviously you know that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have the chips, maybe I shouldn't have this, I should be a little bit tighter on my nutrition. It's just being clever and thinking, what do I want most? Do I want to go out for dinner with my friends and have a pasta dish or something that may not be deemed as healthier, or do I want to stick with it and get a bit more? You can make that decision, but if you know what your max carbs is in a day, you don't have to be anal about it and count it up again. You can literally just be like, okay, well I've had this, maybe I'll go a bit lower carb, higher protein, greens all day, and then I know I'm going out for a big carby meal as easy as later. You can see where you can find the balance in real life and keep what you've done. Right, so let's move on. Does that make sense so far? Has anyone got any questions so far? Okay, so
how do you find out your maximum carbs?
Again, you just gradually do it. So what carbs are you on now? No carbs. So what
25 grams of it after exercise.
Okay, so that's your post-workout, so that's fine. So what you basically do is now is keep all your protein exactly the same. Sometimes you can play with your fats if you're scared of your calories going too high. Don't adjust proteins. And then if you want, just try putting a bit of carbs in. Mainly post-workout is always best, as again you should hopefully know. So if you've got 25 grams, you might start trying to put 50 grams. So then see what the results are for the next couple of weeks. If nothing changes, then again you might go to 75. You're generally going to, everyone's different, and I couldn't possibly tell you, you have this. You can only do it through trial and error, and that's all we do. We have to monitor you and get all the feedback to be able to know what's the deal for you. And then if you do that gradually, then you know that if you've got too many variables coming in, how do you know that if that was right? Whereas if you keep everything the same, you just gradually work on carbs, and you're 2 weeks later, no different in weight, no different in shape, great, I'll go to 50. Next week after that, let's try 75. So you just gradually work it up like that. That's the easiest way. Anything else on that? No? Okay, so reverse dieting. So this is basically what's called reverse dieting. So obviously you have been dieting hard, so now we need to reverse the dieting process to make your body adjust to what it needs to just, be as is. Yeah. So that it's so important because obviously you need to give your body a bit of a break. You can't bang it and bash it that much down into dieting all the time. It has to have a bit of a break. So that's where the maintain comes in. And then again, depending on what your goal is, whether you want more deficit or if you want a surplus to gain like lean mass. So again, I tend to rotate people through, maintain through 3 to 6 month periods, and that's a lot of the time why we have a lot of our services are generally 3 to 6 months, because it's a good amount of time to get people to adjust into their new shapes, basically. Moving on. So we've got progression logging. So whatever you do, even if you think, right, I'm not so going to be hot on the nutrition, I'm going to relax a little bit, you should have probably got to know foods a bit more now. So if you think, right, if I look at a chicken breast, I know that's roughly 150 grams, that's roughly 30 grams of protein. You can roughly work things out. If you're on top of it like that, you can get away with it and not logging it. I don't log mine at the moment unless I have a really serious goal I want to hit. When I have a serious goal, I log it again. So if you're going to go into a period of maintenance or like just relaxedness, then you can leave the nutrition out a little bit because you should know what's good and what's not good. But the main thing you always want to do is always your workouts, because again, if you want to generally improve and you can still maintain food but progress workouts and still get results. You'd be surprised. So you don't always have to be in the deficit. There's so many other things to go with that, and so too much to go into today. But if you were maintaining nutrition at a good level of carbs and calories and protein, obviously, and you were increasing your workouts, you'd notice big changes in your workouts still. You'd even be able to lift more, do more, and then that will translate into later on if you want to go back into a deficit or anything like that. So I always log stuff, and what to log is literally just your weight, what you're doing, rotate your workouts, so every sort of 4 to 6 weeks, like you've experienced. So you basically experience what we basically take all the thinking out by doing it for everyone. But when you do it on your own, all you have to do, you could go to Men's Health or online, Women's Health, whatever, and find some sort of workout. If that's what you want to do that. But just do it so you follow something for a period of time. When it starts to slow down, change it up. When you are specifically striving to be different, you should still technically change your workouts no matter what. Yeah. Moving on. I think I've got one more. What was that? So temptation. So that's basically just sums up the majority of what I've said is pretty much that. So you don't want to be that person now that's constantly, I'm not eating that, I'm not eating that. If you obviously can be a little bit more lax in the real world and maintain what you've got. But like I said, it's just a point of not rushing into it now and going out having like binge meals for the next couple of weeks. That's not going to help you. So all you've got to think about is just be a bit clever about it, keep your protein high, play with your calories and your carbs, get to know what your body does, and the more you know your body, the more what you can take, you're good. And then just prioritise. So what do you want more? Do you want to be even better shape? Or do you want to have a little bit more socialness with your friends? And unless you're in the same circles as you, that have the same sort of ideas and goals as you, then there's a good chance that you're going to have other people that are going to have nowhere near the same ideals as eating good and not drinking and training hard, unless that's your friendship group. So again, you just got to weigh up, what works for you. And just take it slow, so don't rush. So obviously, if you've got what you've got now, look, it took you 12 weeks. And again, some people are happy with what they got, some people may not be as happy with what they thought they could have got in 12 weeks. But again, it's a long process, and again, 12 weeks is such a short amount of time in the grand scheme of how long you were training and maybe eating badly before us, and how long after us that you may be training better or eating better. So 12 weeks is nothing. So you've got to think of the overall picture and